one day before we can celebrate the birth of Jesus, the church invites us to reflect through the Gospel of Luke chapter 1 verses 67 to 79, the song of Zechariah, thanking God for his goodness and prophesying what his son John would be. And Zechariah begins by gratefulness and gratitude to God for all the favors that God has shown him, for blessing him and his wife Elizabeth, even in their old age, to have a son, to bring life into the world. And after he exalts God, after he thanks God, after he expresses his gratitude, he speaks about his son. And about his son, there are three things which Zechariah says. And the first is that his son will be egoless. John will have no ego. John will have no I. And that is why in his proclamation, John is very clear that the Lord must increase and I must decrease. In the Gospel of John, when John is asked who he is very explicit that he is not the Messiah, he is not Elijah, nor is he the prophet. Then who is John? John says himself, he is the one who goes before, he is the one who prepares the way. Isaiah had spoken 8 centuries ago about a messenger who would prepare the way of the Lord. It is John who identifies himself as that messenger after the prophet Isaiah, who says to the people that they have to prepare their hearts, prepare their minds, prepare every fiber of their being to welcome the Messiah who is to come. So Zechariah says first about his son that he has no ego. He does not mind decreasing if the Lord will increase. He doesn't mind being in the background to let the Lord take the foreground. The second point about John, which his father Zechariah says, is that John knows exactly where his authority ends. The moment he points Jesus out to people, the moment he identifies Jesus as the Lamb of God, then John recedes into the background. John moves away from the scene and lets the spotlight fall on Jesus. The reason is John knows that his whole aim in life was to prepare the way, was to lead people to Jesus. And the moment people encountered Jesus, John was no longer required. He knew exactly where his authority ended, and he let his authority end when people encountered Jesus. He did not proceed further than that, and that is why he was able to be at peace with himself. He was able to be at terms with himself because very clearly he was aware that his role was only to lead people to Jesus. And third, which his father Zechariah says, that he was a man who did what he had to do fearlessly. He never let anything deter him from what he had to do. John was fearless no matter what the result or the response of the people was. He never let the reaction of the people or even their response determine that he would stop doing what he had to do. No, he continued perseveringly because he was given a mandate by God, and he would not rest until he fulfilled that mandate. And so fearlessness was another quality of John. Today, as we begin to welcome Christ's child this Christmas, let us ask ourselves if we can welcome him by trying to assimilate these three qualities of John. First, his egolessness. There are so many times when we put the I in the center. Someone said so well that the full form of ego is edging God out. When we edge God out, we put the I in the center. We make ourselves God, which John never did. Because John had no I, because John had no self, because John had no ego, he could do what he had to do to the best of his ability. Second, we must know at every stage of our lives where our authority ends. And finally, we have to be fearless in what we are doing. We must never let the reaction of another deter us if we believe that we have to do it. Let not our actions be based on the results, on the reaction, on the response. Let it be an action done because it has to be done. As we prepare for the coming of the child Jesus into our world, let us open our hearts, let us open our minds as John has shown us how.